Welcome to Couch Lock, the movie podcast. May the 4th be with you on this glorious day. To celebrate, Rachel and I wanted to take a look at one of our favorite Star Wars films, Rogue One.
Oh, yes. Okay, I was really excited talking about this episode just because of like the way we framed it as like a love letter to Rogue One.
Yeah,
I
for sure.
I've been waiting for this moment for so long, Michael.
And you know what? I didn't know it, but I have too.
Oh, that makes me so happy to hear because there's a lot of Star Wars content out there, and to pick just one to talk about really is difficult. Rogue One, though, is the cherry on top of the sundae for me, though. So I'm very happy to be here right now.
Yeah, I am too. It's sort of the pinnacle of what Star Wars stands for. This was the first spin-off Star Wars film, so there was a lot riding on this.
Oh,
And it was
dude.
directed by Gareth Edwards, who has a really good sense for the scale of things and making things massive and making you feel almost
Mhm.
like an insignificant part of a major physical thing. I don't know really quite how to explain it, but he does it with Godzilla, and he really did it here with Rogue One.
Yeah, 100%. It's kind of become his like signature mark on a film. Rogue One does a fantastic job of scale. There's several
Hmm.
shots in that film that are just like, holy shit. I think one of my favorite though is the Star Destroyer that's like hidden in the shadow of the Death Star. And as
Mm,
the Death Star moves, the Star Destroyer is revealed, and you get a really good feeling for just how big the Death Star is, because you know that a Star Destroyer is massive, and this thing it pales in comparison to the size of the Death Star. This whole movie really just does a good job of filling in those details between the two different trilogies, uh, and give us a more fleshed out idea of, okay, well, like, why is the Death Star a thing? How did it even come about? And we also get
hmm.
some moments to really see like Darth Vader be super evil. Um, it's just like, for Star Wars to go away for so long and then come back to the theaters with Rogue One, it really was just like the best cinematic experience I could have hoped for.
Yeah, I remember a lot of people saying this isn't a story that needs to be told. No one really cares. Like a lot
Hmm.
of stuff was be like or surrounding this movie when it came out, including they went through some extensive reshoots and rewrites pretty early on in the or pretty late in the film's development.
Hmm.
And when you hear that, they usually mean bad news. It's usually a mark for something is not going well here, but
Yeah.
with Rogue One, it came out, and I feel like it was just everyone. I mean, I remember everyone really loving it. I'm sure there's some people out there who do not,
Sure.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I
mean,
definitely remember it being fun.
the people that didn't like it, I think really their big complaints were like pacing, and they didn't really fully buy into these characters as like people they should care about. Which makes sense because part of why I think Rogue One is such a great movie is because I feel it hits on those deeper thematic elements of like sacrifice and what does it mean to be hopeful in like a hopeless world. And if you don't care about the characters, like those themes don't hit and the movie wouldn't be that great. And that's understandable why some people walked away going like, "Well, yeah, it looked really pretty. The soundtrack was nice, but
Right.
it wasn't Star Wars." And that's because of the fact that you need to feel the sacrifice these characters are making. And if you don't, then this movie doesn't work for you. Um,
Yeah, that's completely fair. And another thing with the beginning, the development, apparently the composer Michael Giacchino, who did the Incredibles sound or
Look,
the
he's like,
Incredibles score, by the way.
if
So
you
he's like,
liked a soundtrack in like the last 20 years, he did it, okay? Like,
he is just insanely
so
talented.
crazy.
Um, he had only a few weeks to write the score for this film, and that's insane because when I saw it, one of the
Yeah.
big things that stood out to me was how good the score was, and the fact that he had such a little amount of
Hmm.
time to do it was is really crazy. He captures the pure essence of Star Wars in his music, but
Hmm.
it doesn't rely on nostalgia or already done things by John Williams. It's its own thing, but he makes it in his own, and he makes it in his own flavor, and it matches the tone of the film perfectly, I think.
Oh, 100%. And even though he was on that constricted timeline, you can still feel all of the thought that went into every single note that's played in that soundtrack. Like, I love how in those few moments he does incorporate a John Williams Star Wars theme. It's always with intent, just as it was in the original trilogy, just as it was in the prequels. Like, all of these characters have their own unique themes that follow them throughout their story, and the way that a composer can end up telling a story layered on top of what you're visually seeing is like part of why John Williams is so fantastic at what he does, because it is like such a visceral storytelling experience to hear his composition. I think that Michael Giacchino did that just as well. Very big shoes to fill, but he hits all of those thematic elements, and each character has their own tone throughout this film.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to part of the reasons that this film is so good is that it sort of rediscovers the reason for the rebellion. I feel like in other Star Wars films, the war seems like it's a never ending battle of good versus evil, and that's all there ever will be. But in
Right.
Rogue One, you get the motivation of the rebels, and it's defined so clearly. And then when it feeds directly into the events of A New Hope, you feel inspired, and it contextualizes what exactly was going on. And then you're just ready to
Yeah.
dive into the rest of the movies right then and there almost.
Yeah, you're right. Like, this film explores like what it means to be at war, like what the cost of war actually is. And there's this line in the movie where Jyn Erso says rebellions are built on hope. And in this film, we see the rebellion in a very desperate place. They need supplies, they need places to hide, they need start their operation. They can feel this looming threat closing in on them, and they don't really have anywhere to turn. They need somebody to hope for a better future, to be willing to put themselves on the line for a better future. And that's one of the main themes that runs throughout multiple characters in this film. Galen Erso, who doesn't get much screen time, but is part of the whole reason this film is happening, because he's the creator of the Death Star, right? He's hoping for a better future and putting it all on the line to tell the rebellion, hey, there's this big red button. Like, I'm fucking them over. Just like all the way to Saw Gerrera on the planet of Jeddah, who has this group of partisan soldiers, right? And he's been a well-established character all throughout the Clone Wars series, like back through even the Galactic Empire's ruling, right? And so, like, even him sacrificing himself so Jyn can get away with this message to relay to the rebellion, right? And he dies on the planet of Jeddah after the Death Star is tested on it, right? So there's a lot of people that straight up just give their lives in this film, and we watch it like over and over and over until like that
I
final
mean,
scene, right?
yeah, absolutely, including the main characters, and they suffer in this sort of, they're almost imprisoned in their own minds and their own traumas, that they're like jaded to the point when we meet these characters, they're jaded, and I'm talking about Jin and Cassian. They're sort of jaded to the point of no return, we feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Cassian is supposed to be a hero, but he's shooting people in the alleyway in cold blood.
Right.
And Jen is supposed to be this embodiment of hope, but she couldn't care less. She wants to be out. She's like only there for herself. And then at the end, it comes full circle, because they are full of hope, and they've done what they can to bring a better reality for their universe. And it's so fun to watch them just. And I love that they didn't ham fist any weird romance there or anything. It was literally just like, we did this together, like,
Mm-hmm.
good job, like this is all we could do.
Like, even on the beach at the end, it's like, do you think anybody's
Hmm.
listening? Like, yeah, they're listening, all right. Like, they know, job well done, even though this is the end, buddy. you know?
Yeah, for sure.
But you're right. It's like they get these big moments of redemption. For Cassian, we've gotten this bigger image into his past through the Andor series, which was another thing where like it got a lot of like dings for having poor pacing, but I personally thought it was
Mm,
fantastic. And to see a little bit more into like why Cassian is the way he is, and to understand his like redemption arc that happens in Rogue One, I think that this TV series is fantastic for that. Jin's character is like a little more on the nose. We see her as a young girl at the beginning of this film, and we realize that she's always kind of been on the run or trying to break out and find freedom and find herself, and she's had to become like very hardened because of it. Uh, and we see her go from this very like closed off state to opening herself up and deciding, okay, there's something worth fighting for that's maybe bigger than just myself and my freedom.
mhm.
I think that big turning point is on the planet of Jeddah when the Death Star is first tested and they see it with their own eyes.
Yeah, I mean, it's the intentions are also clear, and to see it fully realized is just amazing. And it's speaking of scale, the massive space battle at the end is just some of the one of the coolest fight
Dude,
battles I've ever seen. It's choreographed like a dance.
it's so sick. The Battle of Scarif is amazing. We get some cool like fan service with General Akbar coming in. Um
Hmm. Yeah, super iconic for sure. I love in the big space battle how the one small ship pushes the bigger ship, and then that bigger ship pushes the other big ship, and then that ship knocks itself into the
dude.
shield that's around the world, and it's just like perfectly representing just how a
Yes.
small inspired movement it can have a huge domino effect of everything around, and it just takes one little push, and it's just kind of also sort of what Star Wars is about. It just takes one
Mhm.
person doing the right thing at the right time.
To trigger this like domino effect of reaction. The ship
Yeah.
you're talking about is called a hammerhead, and that's its entire purpose is to just
Oh, really? That's sick.
smash into other ships.
That's
I
dope.
I know, I think that's so sick. Which kind of like leads up to like just the most dramatic and epic action sequence of Jin and Cassian fighting through this
Mhm.
imperial data library like I don't know, tower. And
Data tower, yeah.
yeah, like they're just fighting through this like intense imperial data tower trying to get the plans for the Death Star, and they have to go through all of these different kind of like caveats of do we sneak around and blend in, and now it's time to fight and action and
Yeah, it's like a war movie mixed with a spy thriller.
yeah, oh yeah, 100%.
It's excellent, yeah.
And I'm not gonna lie, uh K2SO meeting his end, just another
Mm.
example of like this is a droid, this is like a computer programmed entity. Why do I feel like it's sacrificing itself right now? Like, why is this
Yeah.
emotionally impacting me? That is so great. And yeah, I love K2SO. It was a sad moment.
Yeah, well, and then the end of the film, we get that amazing Darth Vader scene with him mowing down people like it's nothing. I think that's definitely my favorite Vader scene in all of Star Wars.
Well, it was sick because like up until recently with Obi-Wan, that was really the most we got to see of him just being absolutely cutthroat ruthless, and it felt
Yeah.
so right. Uh,
Yeah,
it,
like the mix with the music and
mhm.
everything going on, and then the lighting, how it's just completely dark, and then his red saber comes out and it lights the room, and that's just how you know he's there.
Oh, so
Sick.
fantastic. Of course, to top it all off, at the very end, posthumously, we get a digital CGI Carrie Fisher, young Carrie
Oh yeah.
Fisher, just to kind of like bring it all full circle. She now has the plans for the Death Star and has decided I need to relay them to Obi-Wan Kenobi. And
Right.
voila, we are off on A New Hope.
Right, exactly. Like I was saying, it just like shoots you off. You wanna just start A New Hope right as soon as the TV or as soon as the credits roll. You just want to start it.
Just right away. It's such a fantastic just little segue into it all. It feels right that I think for the time, like that CGI that they did with her and General Tarkin were kind of like a cutting edge thing, and they pulled it off. They've advanced on it, and it looks even better
Mhm.
with Mark Hamill being de-aged for Luke in the Mandalorian season
Oh,
2
yeah.
finale. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not gonna knock it at all. I think it looks fantastic for what it is. Uh, yeah, and that's Rogue One, and why it's
That's Rogue One,
fantastic.
and why it's great, why it's excellent, why it lives on. Unlike Jin and Cassian, Rogue
Oh,
One lives on.
how sad. Hey, for all you know, I don't. She's wearing a giant kyber crystal necklace. So
Oh,
who?
yeah,
So who even knows?
she coulda just force floated
Yeah.
back to her home planet.
Who even knows?
Who's to tell?
Maybe in 20 years we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll get Jin, the unexpected sequel.
That's what Star Wars Jin, the unexpected sequel.
Yeah, I think that's the one.
Oh, good. Yeah, you know. And with that, thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't yet, please like, follow, and subscribe everywhere at Couchlock Pod. Until next time, may the fourth be with you always.